Armenia and Azerbaijan have been engaged in multiple clashes, violent clashes for weeks now. Many attempts at ceasefire have failed. Both sides have been engaged in multiple rounds of dialogues with international arbiters, but they've not been able to settle the differences and end the violence. How long is this battle expected to be? Joining us today is Ambassador Elchin Amirbayov. He's the assistant to the first vice president of Azerbaijan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
I will come to what's happening in your country in a bit, but let me start with what is making news the world over right now, the situation in France and the crackdown on extremism. You were the ambassador of Azerbaijan in France. What's your take on what's happening there?
Well, I think that any kind of violence, any kind of terrorist acts, whatever are the manifestations, should be condemned outright, and Azerbaijan itself has suffered a lot from the state terrorism. As you know, in the context of our ongoing conflict with Armenia, Azerbaijan was subjected to more than 30 terrorist acts, including the terror acts and explosions in metros, subway system, but also in the transportation and the buses. And so we have lost more than 2,000 people. So it is not something that we are knowing theoretically. We suffered from this evil, and of course it should be confronted with all determination.
Would you say that the people who are protesting against France, and that includes some leaders of Muslim nations, they're confusing the war on extremism with the war on Islam?
Well, that would be a proper statement to make, because unfortunately in many occasions, Islam is wrongly associated with such evils as terrorism or extremism or jihadism. Islam is a peaceful religion. It is a religion which has more than 1 billion followers. And of course, it would be wrong to equalize them. And of course, you know, like any other religion, all those people who are affiliated with it, they have certain feelings, strong feelings about their faith, their religion, and the same people. And so that's why respect towards those is also something which needs to be assured in order to exclude all kinds of misunderstanding, or in order to prevent all kinds of violence.
But nothing justifies a terrorist attack?
Nothing justifies terrorist attack, because they are after people's, human beings' lives, and life is, of course, something that is sacred.
How do you see Turkey's role? It is being seen as the instigator, both in the anti-France sentiment that is being whipped up the world over, and also in the clashes in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Well, I think it's an unfair statement, and I think as far as the Turkish alleged role in Nagorno-Karabakh issue is concerned, I think it's a completely fake news, because I mean Azerbaijan is trying to restore its territorial integrity, and for 28 years the territories of Azerbaijan, of Nagorno-Karabakh, but also of several districts around it, have been under illegal foreign occupation. And as a result of procrastination, indulgence, and in some ways of appeasement of the aggressor state Armenia, you know, these territories for 28 years have been under foreign control. So what we're trying to do is to convince Armenia to stop military activities against us, and but we see that they are persistent in that. And when on the 27th of September, more than 1 month now, they again attacked our military positions, we said enough is enough, and we will have to take this issue in our own hands, because for 28 years the international community unfortunately was silent and did not do anything that would change this illegal situation or illegal status quo. The status quo, which was based on ethnic cleansing, on illegal occupation of other countries' lands, and numerous violations of international humanitarian law. So Turkey's support to Azerbaijan these days is mostly of political and diplomatic nature, and we appreciate very much this, because on the other side, Armenia tried to involve third parties into this conflict in order to regionalize it. And I mean here the allies, the natural allies of Armenia, Russia, but also other member states of organization on the Treaty on Collective Security. But they failed to do so because all those countries have made it clear that whatever happens today is happening in the sovereign territory of Azerbaijan and has nothing to do with the territory of Armenia. That is why all the attempts of Armenia to attract third parties, they are illegitimate, and of course they are not finding the response that Armenia expects to have.
There seems to be evidence that Turkey's role in this conflict and its support to Azerbaijan is more than political and diplomatic, as you claim, that there are Turkish planes and Turkish fighters, and Turkey is bringing in Syrian mercenaries to fight alongside your defense forces.
Well, all these claims need to be substantiated. And of course, I would beg to disagree with you completely because, you know, this is exactly part of the disinformation campaign that Armenia has launched against Azerbaijan together with the campaign on military aggression. The fighter planes of Turkey, they are on the ground, and they were there because just before the conflict started, we had joint military exercises between Turkey and Azerbaijan as countries, allies, and as partners. But no Turkish soldiers or no Turkish fighters, jets are involved in the military activities today. Azerbaijan has a strong 100,000 strong regular army, which is enough to us to conduct and to carry out all the necessary military operations and military tasks. So any allegations that someone is fighting instead of us, of course, it is another piece of fake news and needs some evidence which is lacking.
Okay. So you're saying there is no Turkish involvement in the fighting, there are no Syrian mercenaries. What about human rights violations? Multiple reports say that your troops and allies have been committing human rights violations, and there's active bombing of Nagorno-Karabakh's capital. Why must you bomb civilian installations?
Well, I'm very glad that you have invited me because, you know, from your questions, I can feel like that you have been very much studying the narrative of the other side. So that will give me a good opportunity to fill in this gap. And let me tell you that the violations of human rights on a mass scale started back in 1992, when 20% of Azerbaijan's territory has been ethnically cleansed from the Azerbaijani ethnic presence. And of course, there cannot be any more violent and any gross violation of human rights than ethnic cleansing, when you are massacring and evicting ethnic population from their homeland only because they belong to one ethnic group. And it's about 1 million Azerbaijani citizens whose fundamental human rights were violated. Now, if we go back to this particular incident, which started on the 27th of September, it was Azerbaijani civilian peaceful population, which was targeted by Armenian armed forces in the first place. Let me give you sheer figures which are easy to be checked. As of today, 91 peaceful civilian of Azerbaijani ethnic origin and more than 400 Azerbaijani civilians, 91 were killed and more than 400 were wounded as a result of artillery fire, multiple rocket launchers, ballistic missiles. And let me give you just two small examples. One was in the city of Ganja, which is 100 kilometers away from the zone of combat activities. And twice during nighttime, imagine at 2 o'clock in the morning, sleeping babies, old people, women were just killed while they were sleeping, only because Armenia wanted to take revenge for the military debacle and the fiasco that they are now having on the battleground. Is it not the human right? Is it not a crime of war? Is it not a crime against humanity? Of course it is. But unfortunately, I'm hearing, and that's also true with your questions, the Armenian side has much more powerful access to world media outlets through its diaspora, which is omnipresent, in order to portray the wrong image of Azerbaijan, to tarnish the image of Azerbaijan. But it is Azerbaijan which was the victim of this aggression, the victim of ethnic cleansing, and the victim of illegal foreign occupation.
It is basically their word against yours. And the people who are suffering are the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, who say that there is ethnic cleansing from Baku's side or from Yerevan. Either way, there is violence, and that is something that neither side can deny. Is there any hope for a ceasefire then? Because multiple efforts seem to have collapsed within minutes sometimes.
Well, I agree with you that there is now nothing worse than violence especially against peaceful civilian population. As far as the civilian population in Nagorno-Karabakh is concerned, it should be clear that, being different from Armenia, Azerbaijan has never targeted residential areas of Khankendi, which is called Stena Parket by Armenians, or in Shusha or any other towns, because Armenians, they were placing their artillery pieces and multiple rocket launchers in the middle of the residential area, and those were military targets which opened fire and killed our people. So they need to be neutralized. Unfortunately, it is accompanied with collateral damage, including among civilian population, and we do regret the loss of innocent human life. As far as the peace is concerned and the attempt to reach the ceasefire, indeed, you're right. There were 3 attempts. First brokered by Russia on the 10th of October, later by France, and the most recent in Washington, D.C. All 3 times, 3 or 5 minutes after the entry into force of those humanitarian truces, Azerbaijani forces and residential areas have been again repeatedly attacked by artillery fire of Armenia. And of course, this is something which did not allow for this truce to hold. But again, even today, Azerbaijan have given those 3 chances to Armenia to get down to the negotiation table and to stop fighting. We are still ready to do so, but there is only one thing that we need to hear from Armenia, that they are serious in stopping war, and they are serious in implementing all those resolutions of international community, including 4 resolutions of United Nations Security Council, all of which unanimously demand a complete, unconditional and immediate withdrawal of occupying Armenian forces from the sovereign territories of Azerbaijan. So we do expect that the Armenian side would heed to this call of international community and would abandon this hopeless attempt to regain back the territories that they have been losing since 27th of September.
You don't seem to have a lot of international support, Ambassador, apart from Turkey, perhaps, which has been speaking very prominently in favor of Azerbaijan. Are you going to insist on Turkey to be part of the next round of dialogue?
Well, I wouldn't agree that we don't have enough international support. I think major international players are just trying to remain neutral or impartial. But as far as the support on of international community on this settlement issue is concerned, we do have it. I just quoted to you 4 resolutions of United Nations Security Council, and they were adopted by all 15 members of Security Council, including 5 permanent members. 3 of those are co-chairmen of the Minsk group of OSCE, United States, Russia, and France. So these resolutions were adopted by consensus. And of course, that means that the whole international community recognizes that Nagorno-Karabakh is an integral part of Azerbaijan. But as far as the future is concerned, of course, we do expect that the international community first will exert enough pressure on Armenia to stop this fighting, and secondly, will convince it to accept the basic principles of this settlement, which is laid out on the basis of those 4 resolutions.
Is Azerbaijan looking at this as a long-drawn battle that may not get over anytime soon, in days or weeks?
Well, actually, our wish is to stop it as soon as possible, as I mentioned, but it will all depend on the other side. The ball is now in the Armenian court, because they continue shelling our residential and towns and cities which are away from the zone of combat activities. On our side, we are ready to give another chance at peace, because we understand that sooner or later there should be political settlement, and the military solution is not the one that we prefer. But when we are attacked all the time, when all overtures of peace are rejected by Armenia, we are not left any other choice rather than to restore by our own means the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan over these territories.
Well, we can only hope that the violence abates and both sides can find some common ground to begin dialogue again. Ambassador Elchin Amirbayov, thanks very much for joining us here on WION.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Have a nice day.